Welcome to Are You Quizzing Me? I am Vineet Nair with my co-host Aditya Kashyap. This is a quizzing trivia podcast show. Join us as we dive deep into history, science, pop culture, and so much more. Let's get quizzing. And we're back for episode number 79 of Are You Quizzing Me, your favorite quizzing and trivia podcast show. Aditya and I are back for another round of quizzing, and let's start off with a question for our audience. This is a question I ask at the top of every episode, which I will answer at the end of it. This question should tickle the fancy of both our international listeners who speak Romance languages as well as those from India. When he was stationed in India, General Charles James Napier was tasked with stopping an insurrection by Muslim rulers in a province of undivided India. Being a capable commander, he easily won the battle. According to legend, to inform his superiors of his success, Napier was said to have sent a single-worded message back to England, and that word was Peccavi. I'll spell that out for you. In case I have butchered the pronunciation, it is Peccavi, Peccavi. So the question is, which region did Napier conquer that he sent this response to? I will answer this question at the end of today's episode. So let's go on with our regular quizzing questions. So, Aditya, why don't you start us off with this week?
Lovely. So for this week, Vineet, I'm going to go back to my question format that I had introduced, and I have done 2 rounds of, and this is round number 3. So for regular listeners, welcome back to this format. For new listeners, it's very simple. I'm going to describe events that happened in a specific year without mentioning which year, obviously. Vineet, your job is to tell me which year did all of these happen in.
Okay.
So it's very interesting, the process that I go about choosing these years, because obviously every year has something interesting happening, but some years are just astounding. And I think this year, particular year that I'm going to talk about, is one of those. Such interesting and important events happened politically, specifically. So let me tell you.
Okay.
The Soviet Union began withdrawing its 115,000 troops from Afghanistan. So this was on 15th of May in this year.
Okay. I have the decade now, so then let's move on.
August 8th, ceasefire between Iran and Iraq takes effect after 8 years of war. So after being at war for 8 years, on 8th of August, ceasefire took place, or ceasefire became effective. On August 11th, Al-Qaeda was formed at a meeting between Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri and Dr. Fadl in Peshawar, Pakistan. So Al-Qaeda was born, a major political player on the global scale for decades to come. Mikhail Gorbachev became the head of state of the Soviet Union on October 1st in this year. October 5th, 4 days later, Chile voted in a referendum against extending Pinochet's regime by 8 years. So his regime came to an end after 16 and a half years. So that was another big moment in politics. December 1st, Benazir Bhutto was named Prime Minister of Pakistan, the first female leader of a Muslim country. So that was obviously a milestone. December 7th, the PLO delegation led by Yasser Arafat proclaims the state of Palestine, recognizing the existence of the state of Israel for the first time. So just insane things happening across the globe, across the world, at every political theater that you can imagine. Vineet, do you know which year was all of this happening in?
Let's just say I'm fairly confident that this is the 80s. And
Okay.
I'm guessing it's the second half of the 80s. Because the Iran-Iraq war went on for around 8 years, starting from the beginning of the 80s till almost the end. Same thing for Afghanistan, somewhere around that. Pinochet, again, I know, was the late 80s. Al-Qaeda obviously makes sense because after the Soviet withdrawal, that would happen. But I'm not very sure. My mind's oscillating between a few years. So I'll split the difference and say 80... Oh God, I'm really torn between 87 and 88.
Okay, I'm going to give you one last hint. And this is not going to be from politics. It's going to be from film. And maybe that will get you there. An iconic film was released this year, Vineet, starring Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman. Just
this is Die Hard.
Best Christmas movie ever. Yes, Die
This
Hard
is
was
Die
released.
Hard. This is Die Hard. Oh God, again, 87 or 88? Oh, I'm going to say 87.
Ooh, Vinny, that was a 50-50 and you missed it by just
God.
that much.
Oh God.
No, but that's phenomenal that you narrowed it down to two options. I'm very impressed. Yes, it is 1988. By the way, among all the political stuff aside, why was Die Hard a Christmas film released in July 15th? Why was it a 15th July release?
So that's the thing. Die Hard was never intended to be a Christmas film. It's one of those films that was made a Christmas film, or at least declared a Christmas film retrospectively. It was always a summer blockbuster.
Yeah, fair enough. But it has become pretty much a Christmas fair at this point. But what a year for a lot of things to happen. I'm also going to just tell you a few things which are so surprising to me, that all of these people are of the same age. Michael Cera is the same age as Emma Stone, is the same age as Rihanna, is the same age as Adele, is the same age as Conor McGregor. All of them are born in 1988. This is just, I don't know why it blows my mind. But they're all born in 1988. Michael Cera's boyish looks just do not convey a 1988 born chap.
Like no, he doesn't. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nice question. Yeah, nice question. I enjoyed that. I'm a little peeved with myself because in my head, I had first thought of 88. I was like, this is 88. 8 years. The Iran-Iraq war was like 8 years. So it's definitely around 8 years. The thing that really confused me a little was Gorbachev. I, for some reason, had this thing in my head that he came a little earlier, so 87. If not for Gorbachev, I would have definitely hit for 88.
You narrowed it down to 87, 88. That is very impressive. I would have not gone any further than the second half of 80s. That's the best I would have done. So yeah, very impressive. Okay. Well done, Vineet. Okay, your question.
Okay, so I have one of your favorite types of questions. It is a listicle, and it's a pretty long list, even though it is not exhaustive, right? So this is not the complete list. I've cherry-picked a few from the list, and I am giving you those names. So these are all song names, and they are also really popular, so I'm not even going to try and hide the artists. So I'll tell you the name of the song and the artist, and it's a pretty long list, and you have to tell me what these have in common. Okay? You ready? As I said, pretty long list. Everybody by Backstreet Boys. As Long As You Love Me by the Backstreet Boys. Cloud Number 9 by Bryan Adams. Tearing Up My Heart by NSYNC. Baby One More Time by Britney Spears. I Want It That Way, Backstreet Boys. Show Me the Meaning of Being Lonely, the Backstreet Boys. It's My Life by Bon Jovi. Justin Bieber, Beauty and a Beat. I Knew You Were Trouble, Taylor Swift. Roar by Katy Perry. Bang Bang, Jessie J, Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj. Can't Feel My Face, The Weeknd. Love Me Like You Do, Ellie Goulding from 50 Shades of Grey. God Is a Woman, Ariana Grande. Bad Blood, Taylor Swift. And Blinding Lights, which is the most streamed song in history, by The Weeknd. What do all these songs have in common?
Very interesting. So there's a bunch of Backstreet Boys that really tickled my 90s nostalgia, I must say. Yeah. I won't even call it a guilty pleasure. I think it's doing disservice to Backstreet Boys. I love Backstreet Boys. I still do.
Yeah.
Okay. So Backstreet Boys, Weeknd featured twice. I think Taylor Swift did too as well. There was Bieber.
There are more Taylor Swift entries. Like I Knew You Were Trouble by Taylor Swift also features on the list. Like there are multiple Taylor Swift songs. There are a few Katy Perry songs. I mentioned two. I think I mentioned only one. Hot and Cold and Roar, both I've mentioned, but there are more Katy Perry songs. There are a bunch more Britney Spears songs. There are a few more Kelly Clarkson songs. And many other artists that we've not heard of. Maybe, or I've not heard of at least.
Okay. because you said weekend, and that's probably not the best way to approach this question, but I'm just going to get it out of the way as a guess. Does it have to do with Super Bowl halftime shows?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think...
You'll probably kill me because this is one of those like stupid questions, but it just fascinated me. The fact fascinated me, so I made a list.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I don't think Justin Bieber has performed at Super Bowl halftime. So,
And a specific song. Not all Justin Bieber songs. I mentioned one specific one, Beauty and a Beat.
Yeah, no, I don't even remember this song.
That's one of the few Bieber songs I do know.
Do they have somebody in common, like a lyricist or a music producer or something like that?
Oh, very, very close. You're almost there. Actually, I could now give it to you, but you mentioned 2 or 3 different choices, right? So stick to one and I'll tell you if that's right or not.
Okay, I'm going to narrow it down to lyricist. They have a common lyricist.
Yes, so all these songs were either written or co-written by the same person.
Okay.
Max Martin. Now,
okay. No, I haven't heard of this guy. Okay.
Unsung hero. Like literally unsung hero.
Okay.
So for those of you who haven't heard of him, which is practically everybody outside the music industry, Carl Martin Sandberg, known professionally as Max Martin, is a Swedish record producer and songwriter. He has written or co-written 27 Billboard Hot 100 number 1 singles, 25 of which he has produced or co-produced, an all-time record as of March 2024. As I mentioned, there are some other songs. I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry. One More Night from Maroon 5. Taylor Swift, Shake It Off.
Whoa.
Taylor Swift's Blank Space. Save Your Tears, Blinding Lights. So Blinding Lights obviously is the best performing song of all time according to the chart. Martin has written the second most number 1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, having surpassed John Lennon with his 27th number 1 in March 24. There's only one person who's ahead of him, having written more number 1 singles than Max Martin. Can you guess who? Number 3 is currently John Lennon. Number 2 is Max Martin. Who's number 1? With 32 number 1 singles.
Number 1 single? Is it a famous person? Then I'm guessing it's a famous person.
Very, very famous person. So this person has number 1 with 32, Max Martin at 27, John Lennon at 26.
Is this an artist who has written songs only for themselves or like for other people as well?
I think he has written for other people as well, but majority for himself, like the lion's share. You wouldn't kind of think of him as somebody who writes for other people.
Okay.
And he was famously part of a songwriting duo.
Oh, Simon and Garfunkel?
No.
Yeah, I don't think they have that many number 1 songs. No, yeah.
So he's got many as a solo artist as well, not just as part of the duo.
Is it McCartney?
It's McCartney, Paul McCartney with 32 number 1 singles.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's insane.
And coming back to Max Martin, he's won Songwriter of the Year from the ASCAP for a record of 11 times, the maximum anybody has ever won. He's won 5 Grammys, including Producer of the Year, nominations for an Academy Award and 2 Golden Globe Awards as well.
I wonder how this works because Swifties will swear by the fact that Taylor Swift writes most of her songs. I'm assuming the artist does write a big
bit of
part
it, yeah.
of it. But
so there's a co-writing portion. So most of these songs, he's co-written with somebody else. But he's a legend in the industry.
Obviously, like if you've gotten so many but that's so insane. Like at number 1, McCartney, at number 3, Lennon, and in between this guy that maybe most people outside of the music fanatic group might not have heard of. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. It came to notice because I was curious whether The Weeknd had written Blinding Lights. Right. So then I saw that it's been co-written by a bunch of people. And for some reason, I just clicked on this guy's name. And his Wikipedia page opened up. Like I just ended up on his Wikipedia page. And there was an entire page listed separately with the number of songs he's written, co-written and produced. And that is just insane. There are so many songs I've not mentioned, which are just so popular and especially from the 90s. but he's done an amazing job in the music industry. So yeah, if you've chances are, if there's an amazing song that you love from a favorite artist of yours, it's either been written by Ed Sheeran, Pharrell, or Max Martin.
I was actually going to guess both Ed Sheeran and Pharrell Williams as the people before you gave me the name.
But the 90s, I think, the 90s would have invalidated
the 90s. Yeah, you're right. Wow, lovely. Now, actually, the whole reason I suggested some same song writer was because of Pharrell, because I know Pharrell has written a bunch of songs for other people, and so has Sheeran. But you're right, the 90s wouldn't have worked for that. Lovely. Wow, that was a pretty great question. I enjoyed that tremendously. Okay, so going from enjoying things tremendously, a listener of the podcast, Swaroop, reached out to me and he was very generous with his compliments. So thank you, Swaroop. It's really encouraging to hear from people who like the podcast. So if you do like the podcast, please reach out. It's lovely to hear from you. Swaroop not only was telling us what we do well and what we can do better, but also gave us questions. And that part is obviously a favorite because honestly, it reduces my work for every episode when a listener sends in questions. So Swaroop sent it to me on Instagram. So yeah, you can reach out to us on Instagram, on our private Instagram, or you can reach out to us on our email, areyoukquizingme@gmail.com. Coming back to Swaroop's question, this was very interesting. I had no idea, I had no context at all before I read about this. So Vineet, I'm going to test you out. Sipani Automobiles, does that ring a bell?
Absolutely not.
Okay. They were an Indian car manufacturer established in 1973. They went defunct in 2002. They were located in Bangalore. So they were active for a few decades over there. They were famous for some things, amongst which the most famous of their outputs was a car named Badal. Badal was an interesting and quirky design for its time and featured a 10 horsepower engine placed in the back. It wasn't a huge hit. It wasn't a huge hit, as you can imagine, but it still managed to sell a decent number. The most iconic moment for the car would have been when it featured in the movie Ram Balram, which starred Amitabh Bachchan and Dharmendra. Can you tell me what was very, very unique and probably one of its only kind in terms of design that made Badal stand out? What design feature, what feature of Badal was so unique, was so rarely seen in automobiles that made it stand out, apart from the 10 horsepower engine, which is ridiculous, but yeah.
Yeah, I know motorbikes which have bigger horsepower than that. That is just ridiculous. Okay, so this is some kind of quirky design. First of all, I have never heard of Sipani. I've never heard of Badal. I have not seen Ram Balram. So this is just me blindfolded throwing darts at a dartboard. Okay. So you told me something that's very quirky about the design. Is it that it's unique to India, or are there other automobiles around the world which are of a similar design or have existed?
There are other automobiles, and that will be my hint to you if you need one. I'll give you an example of one of these automobiles from outside of India, an English model. But for now, I will leave it at that there are other automobiles as well with this design, but it's very unique across the world and in India as well. Like, it's barely ever seen.
Would that English model be the Robin?
Man, oh God, just making a mess out of this recording space because I have my head blown all over the floor now. Yes,
you should have mentioned English car. No, when you said, to be honest, the way I worked it out, you told me it's a design thing, something very, very different. So it's either the seating or the wheels. I'm like, rear engine cars are a dime a dozen. Right. So then I was thinking of, there's a thing in the Netherlands which has like a bike-like seating and you get 3 wheels. Right. And then the other one was the Robin, which is famously it's like a punchline on Top Gear. I mean, like the original Top Gear, the one with Jeremy Clarkson and everything. I don't accept what came after that. It's just an abomination. So the original run of Top Gear with Jeremy Clarkson and the bunch, this was, how do I put this, a punchline where a lot of their skits would end with this car, on its side somewhere, because it just couldn't stable with its number of wheels. Yeah.
Well, Vineet did mention that it's the tires that make it different, and I don't know if you specified it, but let me just do it for our audience sake. It is India's first three-wheeled car. Badal was India's first three-wheeled car, so there were only three wheels. A lot of people had assumed or insinuated that it was inspired by Robin. Robin is the English car that I was mentioning, and that Vineet said that is a big punchline on Top Gear. I don't know. You know what? This is one of the things that's missing in my pop culture knowledge. I have never watched Top Gear. Like, it's almost a shame how much I've missed.
I think they had around 16 or 18 seasons with Jeremy Clarkson, the original bunch. I watched all of them, including the first revival, because most people don't know that Top Gear actually existed in the 70s and the 80s. And then it stopped after some time. And then it was revived with James May, Jeremy Clarkson, and there was another person in the first few episodes, and Richard Hammond came in later. And in the first couple of episodes, if you can watch the revival first couple of episodes, which are very 90s, by the way, they actually discuss getting good deals on cars, like getting cheap cars in different parts of England. And they're like, okay, you can go for this model, a second-hand model would cost you only this much and whatnot. Compare that to the end of the series, or towards the end of the series, where almost every skit was like, which supercar can we take where?
Interesting.
So it's massively different. But I believe the first few seasons were more creative, because they were mostly in and around England and some surrounding countries. And then once the Top Gear special started coming out, you had them driving through Bolivia. The Amazon episode in Bolivia, that was fantastic. India was really good. Vietnam was one of their best episodes. And then they created a record by driving to the North Pole, which was just fantastic. Again, they did that in a Toyota. So, like, Top Gear is one of my all-time favorite watch.
This has been a question on our podcast, driving to the North Pole in a Toyota. I remember that. Okay, so that is obviously a pop culture recommendation as well. So you should definitely check that out. Top Gear all seasons, so should I. But coming back to the question itself, Reliant Robin, the English model, people insinuated that was the inspiration for Badal by Sipani Automobiles. But that insinuation is tenuous at best, because it was Sipani was mostly like an auto rickshaw clothed in a passenger car bodywork. So they didn't really need to be inspired by Reliant Robin. We had enough of that on our streets already. So yeah, it was a interesting design. Go check out pictures of Badal, the first three-wheeled car. And it was also a three-door model. By the way, did you know that Reliant Robin, originally it was possible to drive the Robin with a motorcycle permit? So, and that eventually changed.
The engine was that small.
And they're like, I guess a car is four-wheeled, so let's split the difference and you can drive it. But I think they have changed it since then in UK. But yeah, there was a little side trivia related to the Robin. And that is thanks to Swaroop. So thank you so much, Swaroop. This question was brought to you by Swaroop's interest in Sipani Automobiles, apparently.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you, Swaroop, for that wonderful question. I am now going to go to another music-related question. So, Aditya, if you were to look at a list of the fastest selling albums in the United States of America, in the top 10, you would have one artist featuring 3 times, let's call that artist X, another artist featuring twice, let's call them Y. Now, X's albums which feature on this list came out in 2000, 2002 and 2004.
Okay.
Y is on the list for albums which were released in 2023 and 2024.
Okay.
Now, if you take the list of fastest selling albums worldwide, there's only one artist who features more than once. That is Z. And that is for albums released in 1997 and 1991.
Okay.
Can you identify X, Y, and Z?
Sorry, I need to clarify. You said the X and Y record, the top 10, is for the fastest selling albums in the US.
In the US. And Z is for worldwide.
And what do you mean by fastest selling? Like fastest to a million, fastest to, what does that fastest mean? Is it to a number?
So, the sales occurring in the first week of release.
Oh, okay.
So, a number of sales occurring, highest number of sales in the first week of release.
Oh, okay, fine. So it's not really fastest as much as like, I guess you can call it fastest also, but most number of records sold in the first week of release. Artist Y was 2003 and 2023 and 2024? Or was it 2022 and 2023? What is it?
23, okay, 24.
I would have to go with Taylor Swift for that.
Bango, you are right. It is Taylor Swift for 2023 and 2024. So the album released in 2023 was 1989 Taylor's version, and that is on number 8 on the list, and at number 3 on the list is in 2024 album The Tortured Poets Department, which sold 1.9 million albums in the first week. So you've got Y, who features on the list twice. So who's the only other artist who features more than once? And this person has done it 3 times. One-upping Taylor Swift.
And this was 2000, 2001 and 2003, is that it?
2000, 2002, 2004. 2 years apart.
2002, 2004. Who was dominating in the early 2000s? It can't be Britney Spears. I don't think she was...
Oh, Britney Spears is number 10 on the top 10 list for the United States. She's at number 10, impressive. But she's not the one.
Okay. 2000, 2002, 2004. I don't think it's Backstreet Boys.
Backstreet Boys is at number 6.
It's too early for Eminem to have gained that kind of prominence.
It is Eminem. I'm not going to deceive you much longer. It is Eminem.
Wow. Wait, no way.
Yes, Eminem features on the list. First at number 5 for his 2000 album, The Marshall Mathers LP. Then at number 7 again for his 2004 album Encore, and at number 9 for 2002 The Eminem Show.
Why did I do this? Because I remember buying Encore. It was my first rated explicit album that I had somehow convinced my parents to buy it. I don't think they noticed that R rating on it, and it was on a cassette tape, and I remember blasting it on the stereo at home, and I don't know, my parents didn't pay attention to what lyrics they were just like, this doesn't make any sense. They didn't hear the expletives, so yeah, I got away with that, and I can't believe I didn't catch that. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so we have X and Y, which is Eminem and Taylor Swift. Now that brings me to Z, which is 19. What are the years for Z?
So Z, as I mentioned, is worldwide. So we are now moving from the US and we are moving worldwide. So I've already given you a clue. This artist is at number 1 and number 3 on the list.
87 and 91. Is it a solo artist? Not a band?
This person has been part of a group and as a solo artist as well. But these albums were as a solo artist, but he has been part of a group as well as performed as a solo artist.
Can't be Sting.
Oh, nice guess. Police and Sting, but no.
Yeah.
For those youngsters and Gen Zers listening to us, Sting was a really popular artist from the 90s and the 80s. If you ever heard Desert Rose, that's Sting. He used to belong to a band called The Police, which, I don't know, they've disappeared from public consciousness now. Sting now is more known for his views on tantric sex rather than his music. So
that is true. I've heard that as well. Okay. 87, 91. Who was active 87, 91? Also part of a band at some point, but these were solo. Is it Michael Jackson?
Yes, it is Michael Jackson.
Of course, it is Michael Jackson. Yes, that makes sense.
1987's Bad is at number 1, having sold 7 million albums in the first week. And 1991's Dangerous is at number 3 for having sold 5 million records or albums in 1 week.
So, fun question. Love it. Wow, Vineet, you've done a few listicles now in just like roundabout ways. I like it. I like how you've sprung this upon me. Okay. Fine. Before you give me my listicle back at me, I'm going to give another audience question today. Wow, I'm just so lucky this week. I have a bunch of audience questions to rely on. This is courtesy Rakesh. Rakesh has reached out to us. Rakesh reached out to us on our email from his official email account. So I know where Rakesh works. But anyways, I won't go into all of that. Though I must mention, Rakesh is Dr. Rakesh, who is a PhD holder. Oh. So it's a really smart man that we're dealing with over here. And if he's listening to our podcast, that means it's a good podcast. So guys, please make sure you stay tuned. I like to think
all our audience listeners are very smart.
Yeah, that is the exact criteria you need to fit.
The very fact that they're listening to our podcast means they're discerning, intelligent people of taste.
Okay, sorry, this is a random sidetrack, but I should... I really want to tell this to people because very often when I host trivia nights, I have all the answers in front of me. So when I'm asking questions and I know the answers, people automatically assume that I know so many things. And I would like to clarify that I have the answers in front of me. So, and that's the same thing with this podcast. When a friend of mine finds out about it and they're like, oh, wow, how do you know so much trivia? I'm like, very often I just am searching for trivia. It's not like I know these things just out of the blue.
And let me just clarify something from what Aditya said. He knows the answers to the questions that he asks or he answers on his trivia nights. When I'm asking a question, he does not know what I'm going to be asking. This is a completely blinded process that we do.
Yes.
I've had many questions regarding that. People think it's scripted. It's absolutely not scripted.
If it was scripted, I would really want to be portrayed as smarter than what I am because I make some very stupid guesses in this podcast.
Same here.
I would hope our scripting could be better if it was scripted. Okay. So moving from some not very intelligent people to somebody very intelligent, Dr. Rakesh, PhD holder, who sent us questions. Thank you so much, Rakesh. He gave me 3 questions. I'm going to pick 2 of them to ask you, Vineet. So we're just going to do 2 of them at a go. Okay?
Okay.
There is a sign on one of the compartments of a train usually which says LV. What does LV stand for and why is it there?
I think I know what it stands for, but I don't know why it's there.
Uh-huh.
It's the last vehicle.
Oh, lovely. Yes, you got that very quickly. But what was interesting to me was why is it there? Because LV, I also guessed last vehicle was not a very tough question. But why is it there? It was very interesting. And something that if you think about it.
Oh, wait, because it doesn't have a link for another... to identify the train which does not have a rear link to attach another bogie to? Is it that?
Yes, it doesn't have it. But what would it help in terms of, let's say, safety and security? How would it help somebody in terms of safety and security, especially a station guard or other people who are monitoring a train from outside the train?
I don't know.
And probably back in the day when you didn't have as good connectivity and as good efficient means of communication. So how would this help?
I can't think of anything but then why would you need to have it? I was thinking of somebody who's on the last compartment, but then why would you need to label it for that? I mean, you would just see the person is on the last one and they can jump off or they can climb on accordingly. Why would you need to mark it? I have no clue.
Yeah, so by the way, LV is one of the things that very often, I think in Indian trains, I've noticed there's also an X sometimes. So X or LV, both of these signify the same thing. Any guesses, Vineet? Any guess? I'll give you one last clue and maybe you'll be able to figure it out from that. This would help avoid any incident with any other trains. Just having the LV printed. The purpose it served would be to avoid any untoward incident with any other trains.
But see, what's really tripping me up is when you have the last compartment or the last bogie, that's always the last bogie. You would see that, right? So then what's the need to specifically label it?
Okay. All right. I'll help you out over here. Lovely piece of trivia. I would say one of the TIL moments for me. was that LV is written on a train, or X is on the train at the last compartment, because if it passes by a train station and the train station guard notices that there is no compartment, or the last compartment doesn't have an LV or an X, that means one of the compartments has been disengaged and is lying somewhere earlier in the tracks. And that could lead to collision. So the lack of an LV is what would help.
Now that makes sense.
Sure that,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Simple solution to what could be a catastrophic problem. So I love that. Yeah, what a lovely piece of trivia.
Nice.
So Rakesh over here has chosen to talk more about transportation systems. So the next one has to do with airlines and airplanes.
Okay.
So each country in the world is assigned a unique call sign to identify the aircraft registered in its territory.
Okay.
For the US, the call sign is N. For Russia, it's RA. Do you know what India's unique call sign is?
See, I think you want me to say IN, but
that would be too easy.
Yeah, there is a piece of trivia I know about this particular fact, which allows me to tell you that India's, I think they've changed it or they're changing it now, but it used to be, at least I'm guessing because you've asked it now, that you're looking about the older designation, which is VT.
Oh, Vineet, VT. Well done. It is exactly VT. Do you want to tell us what VT stands for?
So if I remember, it's something to do with Queen Victoria, because the fact that I remember was when Queen Victoria died, they kind of, I think it was radio call signs to colonies were all starting with V, because they wanted to commemorate Queen Victoria. So there are other places, other Commonwealth countries also, which have the same kind of V designation, which started, and then that went to, because they were using them as radio call signs, I think that transferred to aircraft when that became a big thing, something like that. But there is a trivia behind that. It's to commemorate Queen Victoria. That's what the V stands for. So I'm guessing T must be territory or something like that.
It is Victorian territory. You're right. And I'm looking at a news article. Of course, Dr. Rakesh did say that it continues to be the case even now. I'm looking at another news article which specifies that there was a petition in 2022. The Delhi High Court refused to entertain that petition because it said it's a government's job to fix it. Like, it is not something that should be changed by the judiciary. So I'm not sure if the government has gotten around to it. Interestingly enough, it can be changed, like it has been done in history. Pakistan used to have VT as well, and they are now AP. So obviously it can be done. So I don't know. I guess we are probably going to do it at some point. Yeah.
No, if I remember correctly, there is some process going on to change it. It's part of the, I think, the current government's decolonization, drive, where they've changed colonized names back to their original ones or to Indian forms of it. So this is one of those things that's happening. I thought it had already happened, but I must be mistaken in that case. But
maybe I also am not quite sure. During the UPA tenure, India also had made an effort to do this, and they were given the option, or they rather wanted the option of BA or IN, but B was already taken up by China and I was taken up by Italy. So I think these were not possible. So I'm not sure where that particular
thing stands
right now. But VT is has been for a very long time the registration number of all airplanes in India. And it stood for Victorian Territory. It was the registration system of British and under the British rule, and it has continued for decades thereafter. So these two questions were by Dr. Rakesh. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and giving us some lovely trivia.
Yeah. Great questions, Rakesh. Great questions. So thank you, and keep sending us these questions. Preferably to me, so that I can stamp Aditya. Okay, moving on. I'm going to leave my listicle as last question. So I'm going to ask you a non-listicle question for now. One of my favorite, kind of straightforward, bring something out from history which people have forgotten. Right. So I'm going to introduce you to George Carl Julius Hackenschmidt. He was an Estonian strongman, professional wrestler, writer, and sports philosopher who is recognized as professional wrestling's first world heavyweight champion. As a classical Greco-Roman wrestler, he was unbeatable, and in that style, he won nearly 300 consecutive matches and several world tournaments. Known as the Russian Lion, he reigned supreme until defeated by Frank Gotch in Chicago in 1908. He retired in 1912 with a reputed record of nearly 2,000 wins and only 5 losses. Handsome as well as powerfully built, he was adored by women and admired by men. Personally, a soft-spoken, cultured and intellectual young man, he could speak 7 languages fluently and became a noted author, speaker and philosopher. Teddy Roosevelt, himself a proponent of physical culture and exercise, proclaimed, "If I wasn't President of the United States, I would like to be George Hackenschmidt." He remained physically fit well into old age, and at 56 years of age, he could jump a 4-foot 6-inch high board 10 times. Even in his mid-80s, he would jump 50 times over a chair once a week, bench press 150 pounds, and run 7 miles in 45 minutes. And this was in his 80s. He died in 1968 in London at the age of 90. Largely forgotten, except by those with a penchant for turn-of-the-century wrestling history, Hackenschmidt's greatest legacy is something that he created. Something that is now prevalent in every country, almost every country, and something so ingrained in modern sport, fitness and masculine culture that practically everyone has heard the name of what he created. So my question to you is, this long forgotten hero, or at least forgotten by the vast majority of people, created something that is so ingrained that practically everybody has heard of this. What did George Hackenschmidt create?
So I know he is, so I had heard of him, and very interestingly, I've heard of him from my gym trainer, who is a big Hackenschmidt fan. So,
so I'm guessing he makes you do the hack squat.
He did make me do the hack squat, yes, and I am not a fan. I'm not a fan at all. Sorry, Hackenschmidt. Good sir. Yeah. But I have done it. And it is interesting because he would be telling me about all of this while I'm in the middle of a set and struggling to do whatever exercise he has assigned to me. So I remember this and I'm confused. It's been a while. It was either the deadlift or the bench press. One of these exercises that he is credited with have invented or basically have come up with. So it's one of these very famous ones. I can't for my life remember if it's the deadlift or the bench press. But it's one of them. Is that what you're looking for?
It is. It is the bench press. He invented what we call now the bench press. And his own record for the bench press stood for 18 years, by the way.
Ooh la la. Nice. Wow.
And if you ever, this is again one of those people, I just love there are these, like individuals, so these fascinating individuals peppered throughout history, right? Like you read their life and their life story and it just, you're like, how is this not a movie? Why hasn't Hugh Jackman been hired to play this guy?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, his Wikipedia page is a fascinating read. His rivalry with Frank Gotch is a completely mind-blowing thing. It's fantastic. I would recommend everybody to please go, immerse yourself in the life of John Carl Julius Hackenschmidt. And he was a very smart man. 7 languages, philosopher, author, speaker, and he was a wrestling heavyweight champion.
And lived to a very ripe old age also. Yeah.
And
impressive
extremely fit. Come on. So running 7 miles in 45 minutes in your mid-80s, I don't know many people in their 20s who can do that.
7 miles in 45 minutes. 7 miles is what? Close to 11 kilometers? How much is it?
Something like that. So 1 mile is around approximately 1.6. So yeah, 11.2, something like that.
Wow. 11 kilometers in 45 minutes? That is insane. I run regularly. I run at least once a week. I run once a week. I can't do 7 kilometers in in 11 kilometers in 40. I can't do 11 kilometers in an hour. What is this man? Wow. In his 80s.
In his
Insane.
80s?
Not that I'm any benchmark for very good running speeds, but still, that is, I have quite a few decades on this man and I still can't get there. Very impressive, very impressive. Okay. From an very impressive man to somebody else who has left quite the mark on history. I'm going to give you a little bit of context to this person's early life. So, X was born on New Year's Day in 1895 in Washington, D.C. He was also known to have a stutter as a child and eventually overcame this by one of the ways that he overcame it was by speaking very quickly. So he decided to speak very quickly, and that had remained with him for the rest of his life, all the way till his death. He was known to be very, very fast when he spoke. He was a consultant with Warner Brothers for a film that was released in 1959, The FBI Story, and was also given a co-producer credit, if I'm not wrong, and also appeared in the film. Do you know who this individual is that I talk about, Vineet?
I have this very sneaky feeling, a kind of deja vu when you were explaining this, because I have read about this guy somewhere. It's somewhere in the back of my head. For the life of me, I cannot remember what this is. But I'm fairly sure this is not an actor. This is somebody... Why am I thinking politician for some reason? This is not an actor. I'm fairly sure of that.
You are in the right realm, I guess. It's not an actor. Yeah. It is in the space of, let's say, geopolitics and in that particular arena.
It's not Henry Kissinger, right?
No, not Kissinger.
The stutter thing. I've read the stutter thing somewhere. God, I'm not getting anything. Clues, please.
I have to just give this as a clue. I don't even know if it's going to be useful, but it's just a very interesting trivia associated to this guy.
Okay.
This particular guy, this gentleman might be a stretch here, I guess, kept a very large collection of pornographic material. Possibly the world's largest collection of pornographic material. Of films, photographs and written materials. With particular emphasis on nude photos of celebrities.
1895 you said, right?
Yeah.
Pornographic materials. There are so many people who'd fit that bill. Errol Flynn comes to mind, but I don't think you'd be asking me a question about Errol Flynn.
No.
And you said he was born in New York, but Errol Flynn was born in Australia, so then it's not him.
And also lived till the age of 1972, was active in the world of geopolitics for pretty much his entire adult life.
1970, he lived till 1972, you're saying?
Yeah, he died in 1972. Born in 1895, New Year's Day, died in 1972.
Oh, wait, this is Hoover? J. Edgar Hoover?
J. Edgar Hoover, yes.
Yes, largest porn collection it should have clicked immediately. Yeah, but this is J. Edgar Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover. So again, the whole porn collection thing, while it does have some evidence, there is some evidence to support that claim. The largest in the world is obviously an assumption. It potentially is. He reportedly, again, not completely verified, but he reportedly used this for his own titillation and pleasure, but also, very importantly, held them for blackmail purposes. So he had this all in his bank just to blackmail celebrities and politicians whenever he needed to get his way around.
Especially civil rights leaders.
He was apparently he hated MLK. And reportedly, again, not verified, but he reportedly hated MLK because he once called up MLK and MLK didn't take his call. And since then, he just hated him. And the more you know about Edgar Hoover, more you realize that he was petty enough for that story to actually be true. Whether it's true or not, you're not sure, but it can be very much. So, and like I mentioned, he was a producer, or at least he was a consultant on the FBI Story, the movie by Warner Brothers. He was actually very involved in films that were made, especially if they had anything to do with literally nation or security. And he would want what he called G-men, government men, to be portrayed in a positive light. So you would have often in these films his rewrites or his recommendations, which said like, oh, there had to be a dialogue which commended the G-men, or said stuff like they get the job done, or they're always so efficient and they're always so good and stuff like that. So he was literally relying on Hollywood to create his propaganda, and well, these guys complied. So that is J. Edgar Hoover. Very well cracked, Vineet.
Interestingly enough, my first exposure to the conspiracy theories surrounding J. Edgar Hoover, some of which later turned out to be true, was this novel from Robert Ludlum called The Chancellor Manuscript, which it doesn't hold up as much as, say, for example, The Bourne Identity, which was also written by Ludlum. But it was one of my first I actually read The Chancellor Manuscript before I read any of the other Ludlum novels. I wouldn't say it's great, but because Ludlum was one of the pioneers of the genre, we should kind of place his novels in the context and at the time in which it was written. But I do recommend him as a read. He's still enjoyable, even though I wouldn't say he's the greatest at anything, but he does make some really fast-paced novels. A few of which I would recommend include, as I mentioned, The Chancellor Manuscript, The Osterman Weekend, The Bourne Identity, of course, right? And The Hallcroft Covenant, which had a really good ending, I thought, which was a completely atypical ending. And he has also, surprisingly enough, written comedies. So if you've not read a geopolitical spy comedy, I would recommend The Road to Gondolfo and The Road to Omaha.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, pop culture recommendations galore.
Okay, so I am going to now ask you the last question of today's episode, which is again a listicle. Right. So this is...
Go for it.
These are not, again, this is not a what can be considered a completely exhaustive list, but let's just say that the most prominent of them are included in what I'm about to say. Okay? I'm going to give you 4 names. Wilfred Biffy Dunderdale, Dwayne Hudson, William Stephenson, and Dushko Popov.
Yeah, I've definitely heard of all of them.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Obviously, sarcasm. Can you repeat the names? I don't even... What?
So you have Wilfred Biffy Dunderdale, Dwayne Hudson, Dushko Popov, and William Stephenson.
Hey. Wow, no idea at all. And did you say it's an exhaustive list?
It's not an exhaustive list, but these are the most prominent, or at least the most likely. There are others on the list which were slightly less likely, but maybe more famous. So that I'll give you one of those as a clue. If you're not able to guess what this is, I'll give you one of the other names on the list. But these 4 are the general consensus. These 4 are the most likely ones.
Is it possible suspects for the Zodiac killer?
No, not at all.
Okay. Because you said most likely, I'm trying to think of hidden identity. Okay, so I'm going to go with what is the other? Banksy? Is it possible people who are...
No.
But you said most likely, so I'm guessing it. Am I on the right track? Is it somebody who the larger population doesn't know? Let
me put it this way. That all of them are somewhat likely, but none of them fit 100%.
Again, am I on the right track then? Is it like a Banksy, or is it like the guy who came up with Bitcoin, or is it one of these people who the larger population doesn't?
You're let's say you're walking the right road, but in the wrong direction.
That is the least helpful suggestion you've ever given me.
Okay, I'll give you one more name on the list, which is a little more topical, so that might help you, because this name has been in the papers and it's been in social media. So in association with the connection to the list. So that might help you out. So the 5th name and the last name, which I will give you, but it again doesn't make this an exhaustive list, but the 5th name is Gus March Phillips.
Wow, don't know that name either, so that didn't help at all. Okay.
Gus March Phillips. If you follow entertainment like I do, that name has been in the public discourse, or at least around entertainment, for the past maybe 5-6 months on and off.
Oh, interesting. Okay. No idea what is relevant to Gus March Phillips in the public discourse. But okay. No, I have literally no context of which domain am I supposed to be looking at.
Okay, I will. William Stephenson. I mentioned I mentioned many names, right? So out of that, William Stephenson was the subject of a book called The Man Called Intrepid.
Man Called Intrepid. Intrepid, like...
The second clue I would give you is to think of World War II.
Are these... But that's not it, because I remember there's some other story. I was thinking there's a unnamed soldier that America has given an award to the remains of an unnamed soldier.
All these people are very well known. The thing is, they were okay. I will give you now a very big clue. This will practically give away the answer, but these are all people whose some aspects of their lives have been taken as inspiration for something.
Oh, okay. So it's like somebody was inspired by, and is there like some fictional character created off of them, something like that?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. So, and you said World War II, so army, military, some famous enough character that people have speculated so much upon that is military based. No, I can't think of any character that is that famous.
Okay,
like is it a, but no, that's the Vietnam War. I was going to say Apocalypse Now, Marlon Brando's character, but
no. Okay, I'll give you a clue. This is the last clue. You will 101% get this. So I'm going to tell you about a real life incident involving one of these people. Namely Dushko Popov.
Popov. Hit me.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Dushko Popov once went into the Estoril casino where he bluffed by placing a bet of $40,000 in order to cause a rival to withdraw from a baccarat table.
Okay, I got it. I think casino itself got me there. This has to be Bond, James Bond.
Yes, it is Bond, James Bond. These are all people who've been inspirations for James Bond. And some of them are like just fascinating. The first person I mentioned is Wilfred Biffy Dunderdale. He was the MI6 head of station in Paris. He would regularly dine at Maxim's restaurant, which is this high dining hot couture, like a hot cuisine restaurant in Paris. He drove an armor-plated Rolls Royce, dressed in handmade suits and Cartier cufflinks. He was a born viveur who enjoyed attractive women, fast cars, and was a friend of Fleming's during the Second World War. He also played a role in the cracking of the Enigma Code. Dwayne Hudson spent much of the Second World War behind enemy lines in Yugoslavia, initially with the British Secret Service and subsequently with the Special Operations Executive. He survived assassination attempts and recruited a network of agents to blow up Axis shipping, blowing up an Italian ship single-handedly. Dushko Popov, practically the most fascinating person among this bunch, was a Serbian triple agent. He, at the same time, was an agent of the VOA, MI6 and Abwehr, which is the German. So Fleming knew Popov and followed him in Lisbon, Portugal as an escort appointed by MI6, witnessing an event in the Estoril casino where Popov bluffed by placing a bet of $40,000 in order to cause a rival to withdraw from a baccarat table. Fleming used this episode as the basis for Casino Royale. Finally, you have William Stephenson. He was an international spy master best known by his code name Intrepid. He was a Canadian soldier, fighter pilot, entrepreneur, inventor, and international millionaire businessman. By 1940, he became the head of the British Secret Coordination, which is an MI6 organization based in New York, and was an advisor to Churchill and Roosevelt. Regarding him, Fleming wrote in the Sunday Times, Ian Fleming wrote in the Sunday Times of 21st October 1962 that Bond was a highly romanticized version of a true spy. The real thing, the man who became one of the greatest agents of the Second World War, is William Stephenson. Now, the clue that I gave you was Gus March Phillips.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gus March Phillips was a British commando on whom parts of James Bond was based, because Fleming knew Gus March Phillips directly. He is been in the public discourse recently because a fictionalized, or at least slightly fictionalized version of him was played by Henry Cavill in the movie The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which I really do recommend. I don't know why that movie did not run. I really enjoyed it. Henry Cavill looking fantastic, and you can just see that he had a great time shooting the movie. Alan Ritchson, amazing. Isa Gonzalez is thermonuclear hot in that movie. The entire movie is a lot of fun. Please go watch it. That's another recommendation.
Yeah.
I have a lot of recommendations again. And also, because of talking about James Bond, I would also recommend this podcast called The Spy Who, which has a series of 5 episodes based on the real-life exploits of Dushko Popov. So, again, please go listen to those episodes about Dushko Popov. It's just fantastic. They have episodes about other spies as well. And it's a really good podcast recommendation from my side as well.
Okay, lovely. So I guess that brings us to the pop culture recommendation section of the podcast.
But before that, we have the audience question we have to clear. So, talking about General Charles James Napier, who was tasked with stopping an insurrection by Muslim rulers in the province of undivided India, he easily won the battle, and to inform his superiors, allegedly, and this is part of his legend, he was said to have sent a single-worded message back, which was Peccavi. Peccavi. The question was, which region did Napier conquer? Aditya, any idea?
I'm assuming the word Peccavi has significance in which region he conquered, right?
No, actually no. It has nothing to do with that region absolutely whatsoever.
Wow, that was quite the red herring. Okay. I'm guessing it is something to do, and I don't know why, but it just rings a bell, with something to do with the subcontinent. So I'm guessing it's somewhere in India, Pakistan.
Yeah, I've already mentioned it was a province of undivided India.
Oh, right.
Or Akhand Bharat, as our current government likes to call it.
Political controversy notwithstanding. Did you mention which time period?
Not particularly significant. But this was around 1812, if I'm not mistaken. 1812, 1814, around that region.
No. 1812. Okay, then I'm going to say somewhere in the north. So is it like a Punjab or somewhere there?
Yeah, but then what is the connection with Peccavi? It's not Punjab, by the way. That's not the right answer. But the way to go get there would be to go through Peccavi. I was not expecting anybody to answer this unless you know this specifically, so I will give the answer. Peccavi is the past tense in Latin for to sin. S-I-N, to sin.
Ooh,
so
Sindh.
The past...
Sindh.
Yes. So basically the past tense of to sin can be translated as I have sinned. Or
I have sinned.
I have sinned.
Oh, man.
Okay. Now, this is, again, as I mentioned, a part of Napier's legend. But I also have, how do I put this, a responsibility to tell the truth. So, the fact is, Napier actually never said this. This pun has gone down in history as a clever line from Napier, but it's actually a misattribution. A 16-year-old girl, Catherine Winkworth, sent the one-word line into the humor magazine Punch, and it was published on 18th May 1844, and later on was misattributed to having been sent by Napier himself. So, yeah, I wish he had actually done it, but he didn't.
Man. Yeah. I mean, good for that woman who sent it in. Very funny. But I was hoping that Napier had a sense of humor, I guess, when you're a colonial. Understand that. But I guess he didn't. So, all right. Well, that's a great pun, though. I love it.
Yeah. I thought you'd enjoy that one.
I did very much so.
So, Aditya, what's your pop culture recommendation for this week?
Ooh, fun. Okay, so I gotta recommend two podcasts, and I'm gonna recommend not just generally the podcast because I've done that in the past as well. I'm gonna recommend specific episodes, and the first one is Taylor Swift versus Scooter Braun, and I was reminded of that obviously when Vineet was talking about Taylor's version. So Scooter Braun is the person that she was in a tussle with to get her own songs and the ownership of her songs back. And that's why she ended up releasing her own versions of it eventually. So Taylor Swift versus Scooter Braun, which was a series of episodes by Business Wars, podcast that both Vineet and I have recommended in the past. They do phenomenal episodes on what would, well, as easily exemplified by its name, Business Wars. So this is one of them. And check out the Scooter Braun and Taylor Swift episode by Business Wars. And my J. Edgar Hoover question was actually inspired by Stuff You Should Know, another podcast that I've recommended in the past. And they recently did 2 episodes on J. Edgar Hoover. So that is worth checking out. And very interesting. I did not even know the history of the man. Apparently had some very strong anti-gay sentiment and allegedly was gay himself. So
closet homosexual, yes.
Yeah, some strange self-hatred over there, I guess. But yeah, there's some interesting, some disturbing, but definitely historic significance to that man's life and the things that he did. So those are the 2 my podcast recommendations. I also want to recommend something which I don't think I have so far. And I maybe most of our listeners don't know, but I do a lot of theater and a lot of improvised theater. So I want to recommend something in that space and not theater, because obviously that would depend on where you live, but something online. So if you have never seen it, definitely check out Whose Line Is It Anyway? The first, the first introduction to improv that most people have in their life. 3 of the most famous improvisers, Ryan Stiles, Wayne Brady, and Colin Mockery. And it's a great show. The other one that I would recommend is Middleditch and Schwartz. This is on Netflix. And these are 3 episodes, and they are 1 hour long, somewhere along there. And they do an hour-long improvised, I guess, play is the best way to describe it, improvised show. But it's a whole hour of them just improvising on stage in front of a live audience. And it's really funny, especially if you do like something in the vein of improvised comedy. So I would recommend these 2 shows that people should check out. Whose Line Is It Anyway? The original series, I think, is better. And Middleditch and Schwartz on Netflix. Those are my 4 pop culture recommendations for the day.
Great recommendations, Aditya. I have heard of a couple of them, but the 1 hour long, what was it called? Middleditch and Schwartz? What is it again?
Middleditch and Schwartz, which is the name of the 2 improvisers who do it. Thomas Middleditch and Ben Schwartz. Yeah.
Nice. That's new to me. I'll definitely check that out. I've already mentioned a bunch of recommendations this week. Top Gear, please go watch Top Gear wherever you can get it. Pirate it if you have to, but it is just an amazing show. It's an amazing show. I would not recommend watching the series post the exit of Jeremy Clarkson, but then again, that's up to you. The second recommendation I have is obviously some of the novels by Robert Ludlum, which I've mentioned. The Chancellor Manuscript, The Osterman Weekend, The Hallcroft Covenant, The Bourne Identity. Yes, it still stands up a little bit. So these are some of which you can read. And 2 of his comedy novels, The Road to Omaha and The Road to Gondolfo. Those are also pretty fun. He has a lot of others which frankly can get a little boring and repetitive. But these are pretty solid, and most of these are some of his earlier works. So those are good. I would also recommend the podcast which I mentioned, The Spy Who, which have series, which have small kind of episode blocks. Each episode block concentrating on one particular spy. Dushko Popov, I think, was the first one in that podcast series, so definitely go listen to that. And finally, I would also like to recommend the movie The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare by Guy Ritchie, starring Henry Cavill, a darling of the internet. Alan Ritchson, who I've recommended earlier for his work in Reacher. So he's also playing a homicidal, murderous Swede in the movie. And altogether, a lot of good-looking men and women in a really fun, fictionalized version of an actual World War II operation called Operation Postmaster. So go watch that as well.
Cool. Lovely recommendations.
So, That's all the time we have for the episode for today. Thank you all for listening in. I hope you enjoyed the show. We hope you enjoyed the show and learned something new. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to our podcast and leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you're listening to us right now. It helps us reach a wider audience and allows more people to discover and enjoy the show. We'd also love to hear from you. As you've heard in this episode already, we do accept questions sent in by our listeners. So you can send us questions either on Instagram at areyouquizzingme or to our private Instagram handles. Or you can send us an email at areyouquizzingme@gmail.com with the name of the quizmaster on the subject line. Scout's honor, we don't check emails intended for the other person. You can also reach our community on Reddit. We have a subreddit r/areyouquizzingme. And you can join other fans of the show there and discuss whatever you want. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more episodes with you in the future. Thanks again for tuning in and have a great day.
See you guys next week.